I've been playing a lot of different builds in the open world of Guild Wars 2, and I realized that not only have boons become an expectation in group content, but even many of these solo builds can be running around with massive 25 stacks of might and permanent quickness. I personally believe quickness should be a very rare buff that only a few classes can provide themselves, because when you expect to have quickness at all times, it homogenizes the rhythm of the animations, dilutes class identity, and makes classes harder to learn because you need more actions per minute to use your skills when you have quickness. But since it doesn't look like we'll be moving in the opposite direction anytime soon, there needs to be some interesting mechanics to regain that class identity. And that's exactly what's happened with the somewhat recent change to the Warrior's dual wielding trait. It gave a passive attack speed increase before, but now it stacks with quickness, so you can get even more attack speed than was ever possible. So not only is the power creep setting in, but to play a dual wielding build for long, you need to take an ice bath, chug a few energy drinks, and take a couple of doses of Adderall during your morning routine. For legal purposes, this is just a joke. While I have preferred to use big two-handed weapons for Warrior in the past, I've been playing a dual-wielding Berserker build in open world PvE with double axes lately. Because the axe primal burst has no recharge as long as you land it every time, and we can attack and gain adrenaline super fast, there's potentially infinite damage. For those who prefer double fisting it, the only thing limiting you is your stamina. I mean, you know what I mean. So in this video, I'll be going over a dual-wielding Berserker build that uses axe as its main weapon set, the skill priority. I'll provide some tips to playing it and show some gameplay in challenging situations. If you're wondering if this build is truly for you, there are many factors that can lead to the difficulty of a build, such as action per minute required, how many different keybinds you need, and how strict the skill ordering is. The only potentially difficult thing about this build is the actions per minute, because otherwise you're just pressing the same skill over and over. And while it can be a bit squishy, we have a lot of healing and some mitigation to allow you to survive and shrug off damage, so you can just focus and hit it very hard and very fast. If pressing buttons fast isn't your thing, but you still like the fast-paced Berserker playstyle, then I'll also include an easier version of the skill rotation that only does slightly less damage, but has way less buttons to press. Let's start with the gear, which is full Berserker with Scholar Runes because we want to maximize damage. Then 2 axes with Force and Accuracy sigils. With all of this and some traits that increase our crit chance, we can get enough crit chance to cap out at 100% and still be able to remove some Berserker pieces for Valkyrie, which is some free health to help us survive a little bit longer until we can pump out our damage. So if you want max crit, all you need is 50% crit, and then you can go for Vitality, which can be achieved by adding a Valkyrie back piece and amulet. Your second weapon set can be anything, but preferably 2 main hand weapons so you can benefit from the dual wielding trait. So I go for sword for the extra mobility and mace for some extra CC and damage modifiers. The sigils don't make much of a difference, so I just go for paralyzation for extra CC, and then sigil of speed for the extra swiftness uptime, which we'll see later why that's important. If you want even more CC, you can go for a mace main hand, or even a dagger main hand if you want more AoE damage, since the axe burst skill is only single target. Then I go for the Zakiros relic to heal off of damage dealt. For traits, take Discipline, Arms, and Berserker. In Discipline, take the typical Warrior Sprint and Brawler's Recovery for some cleansing and movement speed. However, if you can get Swiftness, you also get the extra 10% damage modifier, which is why I have the Speed Sigil on my utility weapon set. If you kill a few enemies, you can stack up the Swiftness, so you don't need to worry about it too much. There are other ways to get Swiftness, but it's just not worth the trade-offs usually, so don't worry about it if you can't get Swiftness. Axe Mastery is a given since axes are our main weapon, and you'll get extra adrenaline from axe crits, which will help us keep churning out the burst skills as fast as possible. Then in Arms, take the Signet trait, which gives a bit of extra crit damage, and it triggers its own passive effect, as well as from your Dolyak Signet. Then Sundering Burst to stack up vulnerability on your targets, and of course Dual Wielding, which increases our attack speed and heals us for every critical hit. Then in Berserker, we want to go for all the stuff that buffs Berserker mode, with Smash Brawler giving an extra 15% crit chance, and Bloody Roar giving 15% more damage. This puts us at 95% crit chance with Fury, but we get another 5% crit chance to bleeding targets, which we passively bleed enemies when we're critting, and we do that all the time, so we don't need to think about this. Also, we increase the duration of our Berserk mode whenever we hit with a primal burst skill, and we give out boons to nearby allies, including Quickness and Might. So we can stack up permanent Quickness uptime to our allies, allowing us to play a boon DPS role in group content. Also, we increase the duration of Berserk mode and apply Quickness, Fury, and Might to nearby allies when using our burst skill. Since the Axe Primal Burst has no cooldown as long as you keep landing it, we can stay in Berserk mode for a very long time, giving out permanent stacks of boons, and even if you do run out of Berserk mode eventually, it isn't long enough to make a dent in your Quickness uptime. Mostly the issue is not whether you can fuel your skill rotation, but more so whether you can reliably hit the target because of pressure, CC, or the target not being in range, which is why I've chosen these utility skills. You can take the Blood Reckoning heal or Defiant stance, depending on the situation. While Blood Reckoning is better healing over time since it converts your damage to healing, it can be bad in situations where you can be one-shotted before you have time to heal, or can't hit things when you're taking damage. Defiant Stance converts damage you take instead of damage you deal into healing, so it's not only potentially healing you a lot, but also mitigates all the damage you would take. The issue is if you time this incorrectly and take no damage, then you get no healing, or if the damage you're taking is gradual instead of instant, you won't get much value. So when going against multiple enemies where you can get more damage out, or enemies that deal gradual damage to you, go with Blood Reckoning for more sustain, and in situations with very dangerous mechanics that can prevent you from staying on your target, use Defiant Stance to ignore those mechanics. Then I take Doliac Signet and Endure Pain because stability and damage mitigation allow you to ignore mechanics, because this build ideally wants to stay on the target non-stop since it never runs out of damage. And even though other utilities may increase your damage, this build can be quite squishy and will need to kite when under pressure, which is just not what this build was designed for. It's made to just stand and deliver. And remember, dead DPS is no DPS. Then I take Sundering Leap because when a target dies, you have to move over to the next one to start attacking again, or when a boss moves away, you can't build Adrenaline. This low cooldown leap gives you adrenaline and increases your Berserk mode duration, so you can seamlessly bridge the gap in your rotation instead of walking over with your slow axe weapon set. But if you don't like this skill, you can use Wild Blow for more CC, or Balanced Stance for a little bit more stability but also some swiftness uptime for the damage modifier from Warrior Sprint. Then Headbutt is your elite skill, which gives you full adrenaline if it hits and stuns both you and the target. So always put on your Doliac Signet before this lands to prevent stunning yourself, or use Endure Pain to stun break right after. Once you get full adrenaline, then we can start pumping out damage by entering Berserk mode. Our plan is to stay in Berserk mode as long as possible because we get more damage buffs, and our primal bursts cost only 10 adrenaline for their max damage, which makes it very easy to spam, and the more we spam it, the longer we stay in Berserk mode. So we'll start out with Headbutt and Doliac Signet. This gives us full adrenaline, and then we can enter Berserk mode and start using your Primal Axe Burst whenever possible. This is your highest priority skill, so always use it whenever possible. This will instantly recharge if it hits, and then we need to get our adrenaline back as fast as possible to use it the next time. Since axe skills give double adrenaline when critically hitting, and we always crit, there are several ways to get your adrenaline full for your next burst skill. So you can use your Axe 2 and 3, that'll give you full adrenaline. Then you can use Axe 4 and 3, that'll give you full adrenaline. Axe 5 is way more adrenaline than max, but it does great damage, so it's worth it to use the whole thing. Then any of your utilities like Sundering Leap will allow you to use it. Headbutt and Blood Reckoning will allow you to reuse your Decapitate again. However, you will run out of these eventually, and you'll just end up auto-attacking sometimes. The thing is, your attack speed is so fast, and your auto-attack has such a quick animation, that you get your next burst up just as quickly as your other combos. Even though the attack does a bit less damage than your Axe 2, 3, and 4, your Primal Burst is the main damage source. So what I'm saying is, it's completely viable to just spam auto-attacks and F1 instead of worrying about any of these other skills with cooldowns for essentially infinite damage. You'll run out of Berserk mode if you don't use Headbutt, Sundering Leap, and your burst skills off cooldown, but the fights usually end before that happens. This results in what many would call a low intensity playstyle because you're just pressing F1 whenever it lights up, and letting the auto attacks, which progress automatically, to do most of the work in between. But still, I would not say that this is a low intensity build. It's full melee and full glass cannon, so it's definitely not something I would say is relaxing to play. You need good timing on your mitigation skills like Endure Pain to be able to casually spam your F1, and you need to be constantly moving your character to stick to your target, which means using your movement keys a lot. In high pressure situations, you want to be constantly strafing around your target to avoid as much damage as possible to allow you to wail on them with your infinite damage. To do this efficiently, I suggest watching my mobility video, but essentially what you'll do is hold your right mouse button down to control your character and camera at the same time. Then hold down either your strafe left or strafe right key and move your mouse to change the angle of your strafe as you move around the target. This means your keyboard hand is only pressing the strafe key and your mouse hand is doing all the movement for you, and you can afford to reach up and press your F1 key every second or so while staying in auto attack range. If you get out of auto attack range, you can Sundering Leap in, or you can hold down both mouse buttons, which moves you forward. Or you can use the ranged axe 3, but otherwise you just do whatever is easiest for you to get your adrenaline up and spam that axe burst. If for whatever reason you miss your axe burst, you can be in trouble because then it goes on a 4-second cooldown, and during that time you aren't extending the duration of your Berserk mode. If you can hold on to your Blood Reckoning, this is when it can come in handy because it will reset your burst cooldown, allowing you to make up for a mistake if you cast your burst skill while blinded or out of range. Or you can swap weapons and use that other weapon's burst skill because it will extend your Berserk duration, and you can swap back to your axe set very shortly after since Discipline reduces weapon swap cooldown. Other issues you may run into are when you get overloaded with conditions and you can't cleanse them, and weapon swapping isn't convenient. That's when you take Wild Blow because it removes weakness, blind, and slow, which are the 3 worst conditions to get on you as a warrior. If you can't get in melee range even with Sundering Leap, you can put on a ranged weapon like spear or rifle in your offhand, but at that point, are you even playing the same build? You might want to just swap builds entirely at that point. But that is pretty much how the dual wield Berserker is played. If you like this content, then please like and subscribe. If you want to support me further, you can do so by becoming a channel member, which is by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button, and you can do that for as little as $1. Any amount is appreciated. Also leave a comment if you end up trying this build out, and let me know how it goes. And I will see you all next time.